Hey you, if no one's told you this today, you deserve a break, like a real one. And lucky for you, this break is just a short drive away to beautiful Destin, Florida. And it's called Lady World. It's a beachside outdoor festival happening September 26th through the 28th. Picture this: beachside yoga in the morning, cocktails by noon, summer camp style crafts and activities, a gifting suite full of stuff for you, pickleball, and evenings packed with live podcasts and music. It's summer camp for grown women with special guests like the Lady Gang, Ariana Madix, Stassi Schroeder, Love is Blind stars Lauren and Cameron Hamilton, Caitlin Bristow, and actual boy band legends from NSYNC, O-Town, BB Mac, and more. So grab your besties or come solo and make new ones because tickets are flying. Head to ladyworld.co to snag yours. You've earned this weekend of fun, friendship, and possibly questionable decisions. I'll see you in paradise.
Hey guys, so welcome back again to Cate and Ty Break It Down. Again, thank you for all of the love and the support that we've been receiving. Today we are here with a very dear friend. I want to know, do you prefer by going by Dez or DezaRay?
Dez is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's the outspoken adoptee on TikTok and Instagram.
Yes.
And yeah.
A couple times over on Instagram.
Yeah.
And we love your vibes. Love your vibes.
Thank you. Truth needs to be told bluntly, not palatably.
And you do that unapologetically, and we love it.
I've gotten there. Absolutely.
How was that like for you, though? Like, did it take time to get there, or?
It does. So I think being adopted, society tells you how to feel. Society tells you how to think, how to feel about your adoption. You are grateful, lucky, blessed. You have to be one of those three. So when you walk in somewhere and somebody finds out you're adopted, their immediate reaction is, oh, you're so blessed. I bet you're so lucky, grateful, all those. So you're constantly being told by society, this is what you should be feeling. And when it doesn't match what you feel inside, you just kind of shut down. I also grew up in the era of children are seen, not heard. And that really was damaging because then when things are happening, I'm not telling anyone about them because why? Children are seen, they're not heard. So, and you kind of also just know from experience and other things, nobody really cares. They know that things are not okay, but nobody says anything.
You were raised in Utah.
So. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
so can you tell us?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your adoption story, whatever you're comfortable with sharing?
Absolutely. So I was adopted at 7 days old.
Oh wow.
The quick birth side of that is my birth parents were both together. They were living together, had a working relationship, and then out of nowhere, she up and left while he was at work, and he never saw her or me again. And so he was actively excited to have a baby. He thought, this is my future and whatnot. So to come home, I'm sure he was highly disappointed. My non-identifying information tried to paint it as he was a one-night stand. He wanted nothing to do with her or me, and that she had some mental capacity that kept her from being a parent, which I later found out was semi-true and semi-not true. She does have she is a little challenged, but not to the point where she can't live, work, that type of stuff.
Okay.
She does I have a half-sister that was kept and parented by her and the grandmother that kind of orchestrated the fact that they couldn't have a black child in their family.
Because,
the Mormon doctrine is they believe that, black children or black people are cursed with the skin of blackness.
Oh my gosh.
Mormonism is their right path to white and delightsomeness. They believe that we will resurrect white in heaven if we believe.
I've never heard this before.
It's wild what they believe. Luckily, I was adopted by, I say luckily, but 2 ex-LDS parents.
Okay.
So they were really the ones that kind of helped me against it, but then also brought me, sadly, closer to it.
So your birth mom.
Yes.
Was she white or black?
Yes.
And so she was white.
White mommy, black daddy.
Okay, and the grandma was like, absolutely not.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Well, okay.
Yes. When she ended up getting pregnant 6 months later. So my half sister is 15 months younger than me,
Wow.
and she was kept and parented.
Is that painful?
When I found that out, absolutely, because when you look at it from my point of view of seeing this non-identifying information and it's saying, oh, she was challenged, she had issues, she couldn't parent, blah, blah, blah. The father was nowhere near around. I'm looking at it and I actually felt for my birth mother. I was like, oh, wow, my heart opened up for her. And then I met her.
Oh.
And it was no questions. You couldn't ask questions. And if I asked questions, I was being abrasive. How dare I ask these questions? How dare I ask if I
How
was
old were
named?
you when you
So this
met
was
her?
4-ish years ago.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
kind of recent. I mean, this
Kind
is
of recent.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've gone through a lot in the last couple of years. But so I found her. I found a half sister. That was shocking. We found out we went to 1 year of junior high and 1 year of high school together. And
At
I
the
had
same
no clue.
school?
Yep. She knew about me.
Whoa.
I didn't know about her. To what degree, I don't know. She's very closed to talking about it. When we first met, she did tell me a lot about the grandmother, her behavior, the racism and stuff. But then in the end, wanted me to see this grandmother as this beautiful human.
Yeah,
Because
like
that's how she saw her. And it's
Right.
like, well, that was a completely different experience. You weren't shunned out of the family.
So you were raised in the same town.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
Essentially, yes.
Whoa.
Yes. And the fallout of our relationship was because I did notice some racist tensions and behaviors with her. And then the non-questioning. She also kept me from meeting my uncle, which I thought was really weird. And now he's passed on. I'll never get to meet him, but he was so excited to meet me. And that really, and I don't understand why she wanted to lie or keep it all a secret. So we slowly just fell out. I tried to have her come to where we both grew up. And I was like, you come here. I've already gone to you in your home. You come here now, back home, and we'll show each other our stomping grounds.
Right.
Like, I thought that this was a great bonding for us. And she was, I don't leave anywhere without my husband. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't leave my kids. I'm like,
And this is your
you
sister,
go hunting.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is she involved in the LD? Like, is that? Or is,
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So
Okay.
most of my bio family, other than on my maternal side, has kind of, at least the mother, the sister, have kind of denounced it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the grandmother was still full-fledged. The aunt, that type of stuff. I did meet the aunt and a cousin. They kind of only seemed like they wanted to meet me just to clear their conscience that I was alive.
Okay.
Well, whatever. And then the story to my adoption was my adopted mother. They had already had 3 biological sons. So when she was pregnant and gave birth to the 3rd one in the hospital room, allegedly, she told my adoptive father, I want a girl, get me a girl.
Okay.
And so 5 years and 9 months to the date of them putting in the paperwork and everything, or no, 5 years, but then 9 months of the paperwork, they got the call. She did put in a request for a peanut butter skin baby with black curly hair. And if you can't tell,
Okay.
she quite got what her money paid for.
Wait, what do you mean she could
She
write
told the
in
adoption
or
agency that she wanted a peanut butter skin baby with black curly hair.
That is-
Wow.
Yeah.
And are
If
they
that
white?
sounds
Are
weird,
they
'cause
white?
They are white. Yeah. My
Oh.
brothers are towheads.
I'm just like that sounds weird to anyone listening. It's because
It really does. It does,
Because
but
it
it
is
doesn't.
weird.
Because there are people that will listen to that and go, "Oh, she wanted you so much. She even
Okay, I
she
don't-
handpicked you."
I don't.
And it makes you want to get
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no.
You custom ordered a baby like
Right.
a purse. You were on Gucci designing your bag. Like, what were you doing? And so I went into this home. They moved to Layton, a very secluded area, where I grew up, in the schools I grew up in, have a lot of issues with racism, a lot of issues. One of my friends' 10-year-old daughter ended up committing suicide because she was being bullied so bad and the district wouldn't do anything. So there is a lot that comes out of Utah that people just aren't realizing. There is a lot of covert type of racism, really nice people to your face. You turn around and they're behind your back. They're
Right.
not the people. And so it was hard growing up there. Having all Mormon kids, they wouldn't play with me. I wasn't invited to a lot of things, and I didn't realize why.
Right. You're a kid.
The first time I ever got asked what I was in fifth. I was 5, not fifth grade. 5. I was 5.
What you were? What does that mean?
Yeah,
So exactly. Thank you.
What does that mean?
Thank you. So I had a kid come up to me and he says, "What are you?" And I looked at him and I was like,
I'm a person.
"A girl?"
Yeah.
Right.
A girl. You can't see. Can't see that. I'm a girl. And he said it again. What are you? And that's when it clicked. It had nothing to do with my gender. It was, what are you? Why are you brown? Not having a family to go home to and say XYZ kids are XYZing at school and everything, and having parents that understand that and can relate to that was definitely challenging. It was, well, what did you do to make them say that to you?
Oh.
You must have done something. I was always the problem, which also shut me down a lot as a child. I know that teachers saw things that they probably didn't agree with, behaviors and patterns, and as mandated reporters, they stayed silent. I had a teacher that lived up the street from me. I remember one Mother's Day, she brought flowers for the entire class to give to their mothers. I was the only kid that had to somehow come to her home and pick up my flower.
What?
Wow.
And just weird things like that. But you don't realize it when you're little. You just, oh, okay. Well, I live down the street from you, so that's probably why.
But
when did you have a fresh flower?
When did you know though that you were different from your biological brothers, or when did you
It sounds like, I was gonna say, it sounds like off rip.
Very early. I mean, my youngest, the brother that is 5 years older than me, he is blonde hair, like blue or green eyes. We are night and day. Obviously children are out in the sun all the time, so I have my winter coat and my my summer coat. But I knew adoption was always, I always knew I was adopted.
Yeah,
I always knew I was adopted. My name. So my first name was Rebecca. I was only allowed to go by Rebecca or Becca. If my friends called and said, "Hey, is Becky there?" Click. She would hang up on them, or she'd say, "We have a Rebecca and a Becca here." Click. So she was very tied to that name somehow. My middle name, DezaRay. I am named, if you look at the spelling, the DEZA capital RAY is because my adopted father's name is Ray. So to the day that this woman died, he provided her, bought her anything and everything she ever wanted, including a human. And even in her obituary, it said if she wanted something, she got it.
Wow.
So, they all knew. They all knew. Yeah. Even my family, watching the abuse and how she treated me completely different than everyone. I look at it now and I'm just like, y'all sat back and you said nothing. Like, my brothers are 13 and 14 years and 5 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
How did y'all, except for maybe the one 5 years older. At some point, he's still a baby too. But the older ones, you weren't really my brothers. You were more of sitters by the time I was old enough to really go and hang out with them. They were more like babysitters to me than brothers.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
And when you talk about abuse, was it emotional, physical, or all the above?
So in my home contained the 4 men, and out of those 4 men, only one of them is not a pedophile.
Wow.
So my adopted father was my abuser from age 5 to 17.
Wow, Des, I'm sorry.
My next brother, my oldest brother, I've never accused him of anything, only because I have blocked out a ton.
Of course.
A ton. But I still don't have a comfort level with him. There is something. He was accused, he was convicted of rape of his 3-year-old daughter. So I had to deal with that as probably in junior high. I was dealing with watching my brother get taken away and dealing with my niece, my nephew, like losing all my nieces and nephews and not fully understanding
Knowing why, yeah.
but I knew why. Like I didn't fully get it, but I also knew because I had witnessed some of the harm he was committing on her and knew just you don't tell. You know, I kept it a secret. And then shortly after that he was caught. But then my middle brother is the only one that I even semi had a relationship with until I started to divulge a lot of the trauma and brought him into therapy and everything. And he walked away picking his father and his brothers.
Wow.
So when they say blood ain't thicker than water, so then the younger brother was my abuser from age 8 till he left to go to the military at 18-ish. And then he broke his leg in 3 places and got to come home. He did try to pick up where he left off. And I was like, no.
And what age was this?
I want to say probably about 15, 16. 14.
When he came back after the
when
broken
he came
leg?
back, yeah, somewhere around there. And it just, you know, he would try to pick up. He would stalk me in my window. I could see him in my window or the bathroom window. Or if I died, video games scared me at a point because he would use them as a tactic against me. If you die on this game, this level, if you die, then you have to do XYZ. And, you know, just putting fear in me in any way, shape, or form. He was also very physically abusive as a kid. He would keep me, we used to have this frog toy box, and he would put me in it and then sit on it just hours and watch TV. So he was very physically, emotionally, I would say, you know, that's an emotional abuse as well. My mom was very verbally, physically, emotionally abusive. My dad, I trauma bonded to my dad. I 100% trauma bonded to that man.
He was also your abuser too, though.
Exactly. But he did it in a malicious way of being nice to me. He was nicer when she was mean. So when she was mean, he would come swoop in and be like, well, I'm Daddy Save-A-Lot, you know? And I didn't realize that at all. So when I turned 17, I started going by my middle name to try and distance myself. I'm sure you've heard from a lot of adoptees. We do things to distance ourselves. We move. We, you know, it's
Rebel,
our way. Yeah.
Deconstruct from the religion you're raised in. Yeah, I've heard a lot of.
And with all this abuse that was going on, like even just some men, let alone in your life, your adoptive mother never noticed?
She did.
She absolutely.
So she knew her husband.
That's a good question. Yeah,
she knew her husband was.
Knew.
And her sons.
Totally knew. And she has been nothing but their ride or die support.
Wow.
It was me. So back in the 80s, nightgowns. We all wore nightgowns. I would be blamed for not wearing pants or shorts under my nightgown. And I'm like, woman, you're the one buying them. Stop buying nightgowns then. I mean, it's not going to stop, but stop buying nightgowns. When I was 5, she put me in the basement with all 3 of my brothers and just left me. We had a 3-story home. And she put me at 5 in the basement with all 3 of my brothers.
The basement, what? Was the bedroom?
It was my bedroom.
Oh.
Yeah. She put all the kids in the basement when I turned 5. And yet they had a bedroom right adjacent to them.
And she knew that they were abusing you.
Oh yeah,
that is sick.
Everything just became my fault. I remember living there. I was probably, my mid-20s, and my son and me and both my parents were on the stairwell, and she started screaming about me having sex with her husband right in front of my son, and I was just like, "Are you not okay? Like this is not the place."
No, your husband raped me and molested me.
Right. This is not the place in front of my child to be having these conversations. Yeah, she was very much complicit in it. Even my oldest brother, when he got convicted and everything, I'm a snoop. You'll hear this from adopted people too. We know something's a rogue, and so we go searching for answers. I always dug through this stuff when they would go on vacation. And so I found in a drawer a Mother's Day card that my brother had given to her shortly after he got out of jail. It was his report It was all his reports, why he did, in his own words, what he did to his daughter, why he did what. Why would you give that to your mommy for Mom's Day?
Why would your mom keep it? I mean,
yeah, so weird. But guess who owns it now?
Who?
Me.
Oh, wow.
I kept it. I don't know why. I have no clue why I kept it, but I kept it.
Well, how old were you when you found that?
I'm 30.
Oh, okay,
30-ish,
wow.
And I kept it. I was like, something in me knew that the type of people that they are, they will try to find a way that this wasn't true. This wasn't true. I'm the liar.
So, like, your subconscious probably just kept it. Like, I'm making sure that I have the receipts.
Even if it isn't against me.
Right.
It still shows that I should have never been in this home. You know what I mean?
Do you think, I wonder too, like, I wonder if your adoptive dad was abusing the boys.
That, I have no clue. I read in the file for my brother trying to get hints to that. He only hinted to an uncle, and both the uncles I look at and I'm just like, well, the one uncle is a few years older than you, so I can't. I mean, it still could happen, but yeah.
Yeah, because that's that. The only reason why I thought that is because, like, you have the dad abusing you and the siblings abusing you, and I'm like, well, who's abusing these young boys? Where are they learning this from?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
and even that part of your story, let alone, shows you the statistics are true when they say about adoptees getting abused.
Oh, absolutely. And people really just want to deny.
They really do. And that's why we want to have this conversation, because I think it's important that, like, we said it, like, I don't know how many times today, but, like, it just guarantees a way different life, and sometimes a worse life than they would have maybe had if they stayed with their biological parents.
Absolutely.
And I think
people tout it as the grass is greener.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so sorry that you went through that. I mean, it's just intense. It's heavy. I'm emotional because I experienced a lot of sexual abuse, and it's just like, you being an adoptee, I just like, ugh.
And I wonder if that's kind of what makes some of this okay to these people to abuse children, because they're not biologically related to them. So that layer is gone. And so I think I truly believe this is why our statistics are so high, is we are with two complete and utter strangers. These are non-biological strangers to us. And people tout that these people must be safer than our bio families. And the statistics show complete opposites of that. I mean, we're overrepresented in every industry. The troubled teen industry, which is huge in Utah. Huge in Utah that kids are being sent there. Mental health, substance abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, murder.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm learning a whole different thing about Utah.
Yeah,
I had no idea Utah was even
yeah.
I'm like, whoa, Utah is like...
It's always been kind of culty.
Yeah.
Like, you get that vibe from some of the people and stuff. And I feel like nobody was there to help you. You were just, like, left to it.
Oh, absolutely. And, and I think a lot of people want to believe that because these are good Christian people, that they don't have these racist ideologies and beliefs and stuff. But when I'm the kid and I can see that it's not just that my parents drink coffee and smoke cigarettes, that kids are not playing with me. Because, if the cigarette smoke is a problem, we were 80s outdoor kids.
Right.
What 80s kids stayed in the room? None.
Right.
So it didn't make sense, growing up and not being invited and seeing the difference, and then getting into, what was it? 10th? No, had to have been junior high. It was somewhere between 7th and 9th grade that movie Jungle Fever came out.
Oh.
And it's got that stark black hand, the white hand on the cover. Oh my God, my days at school were hearing people tell me that that's how I was conceived. My parents had jungle fever and singing the song and just all of this stuff. And I'm just like, why is this happening? And not having anyone to go home to say, the kids are singing the Jungle Fever song.
I wish I was your friend back then, because I'd be beating people's asses left and right. Like, that is disgusting.
But to me, I feel like, one, I obviously didn't understand microaggressions. That's the other thing, not having language to know that this is a microaggression, this was blatant racism, this was this, and being able to come home and be like, this was this. This was a microaggression. This was something.
Well, because you can't even tell them, because they're not going to believe you, and they probably wouldn't have cared even if you would have told them.
And I look at even aunts, uncles, all these people that watched with their own eyes the abuse from this woman and still said nothing.
They failed you.
Nothing at all. And they wonder why I am no contact with anyone.
Right.
Y'all, yeah, exactly. You know, and I had another mother, you could say. I grew up knowing this person as my sister. Since she was born, we're about 8 years apart. And her mother was my mother's best friend. And I cherish this woman. I still have a lot of love for her. But now that I've actually been able to analyze and think about it and stuff, even she didn't protect me. And you are so close to my adopted mother, and you're seeing all this, so much so that you removed yourself. That was the end of their friendship, was constantly getting phone calls from my adopted mother telling her what a horrible person I am. You know,
Wow.
oh, she did this, 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 and this. I can't stand her, blah, blah, blah. And she would defend me to a degree, but then at the end of the day, she just removed herself as a friend. They were no longer friends anymore.
Right. She didn't call anybody on your behalf or help or anything.
Yep. And you could have completely removed me. So many people could have removed me from that home.
And then you know what it makes me think of is your birth father. You speaking about all of that and all of the things and him just showing up to an empty house one day.
Right.
Oh.
And then I don't know if you've met him or anything, but if you have, I'm just saying, like, I couldn't imagine him having to hear everything that you went through, and he was excited for you, and he wanted, like, how fucking heartbreaking.
Right. And that's the other thing about Utah. Fathers do not have rights in Utah. They'll do a newspaper ad. Hey, did you lose a baby somewhere? They don't really do a lot. Utah is very notorious for adoption coercion. There's websites dedicated to telling women, make sure that you fly this birth mother to Utah. I've had countless birth mothers tell me that they were left in apartments or hotels with just a plane ticket back.
Wow.
You know, and not even, some of them even had children with them. And how are they supposed to get back with their own, with other kids that they had? And once the ink is dry in Utah, there is no revocation period.
Oh, there's
none.
Because
none.
I saw someone sent me an ad saying that they had packages that they'll pay for these women to go to Utah, stay in a house, and like provide everything for them if they were willing to do adoption. And I'm like,
and
what?
Basically, when they get there, they just coerce and manipulate and brainwash them.
You will owe us XYZ, all this money and everything. If you do not complete the adoption plan, you're going to owe all this money. They're going to sue you. And none of that is true. None of that. What are they going to sue you for?
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
It should all be legal by the book, what you can and cannot pay for. And if you're going off kilter, then that's kind of on you, and I can see being this young person and not understanding your rights and
being
stuff.
scared, like, they're going to come after me. I have to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Flesh, your own flesh. It kind of puts a whole new spin on that. I owe my firstborn child. That saying,
yes,
it kind of puts a whole new spin on, I owe you my firstborn child. Because they really do. In the end of the day, they really feel like they owe, their firstborn child. My dad, I did talk to him a few times. I don't know if me and him, it triggered something in him.
Okay.
I am his only child.
Oh,
out there.
Wow.
He has no other kids that I know of. Nobody popped up on my DNA. But I think it really hurt him, but also he is in this realm of, I can tell it did a mental toll on him, his life, everything.
Which, how couldn't it?
Yeah. What kind of ruined it for us was kind of the same thing, some of the same things with my maternal side. Nobody wanted to hear about my negative experience.
Even
he didn't want to?
Yeah, none of them did. None of them. Well, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to know about that. And it's like, how do you not want to know that this stuff happened?
And what I went through.
Yeah. And it goes back to society really only wanting to hear these positive, happy stories that make them feel all warm and fuzzy inside, and not the truth that I know doesn't sit comfortable with people. And obviously they were touted that they were giving me a better, beautiful life. And to hear that that wasn't the case, I'm sure is something for them too.
Oh, yeah.
But my dad was still in love with my mom, my birth mom. And
Weird.
I had to, I straight up hung up on him.
Yeah, I bet.
He-
Yeah. Yeah.
We're on the phone talking, and all of a sudden he's like, well, you can't talk about your mother. I called her a bitch or something. And he's like, you can't talk about your mother that way. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
excuse me,
gosh.
sir? And he's like, I am still in love. That is your mother. And I
Oh,
click.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
I couldn't hang
No.
up. I'm like, where's the old-fashioned
Yeah,
phones right
slam.
now?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or the slap, like the
Yeah, the
razor.
slap- flip phone,
something,
yeah.
something. You
Yeah.
needed that effect, but it was in my head. And I just, that made me instantly back away. You are still in love with the woman who left you.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Took
took
your
me.
child
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, right. And took me and gave me to somebody else.
Yeah, I even lost money in that one. I had booked a whole hotel, the flight, all of it,
Oh,
a
wow.
package, and everything fell through. And
To
I
go
just-
see him?
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's in California. My birth mother is in Colorado.
Okay.
So everybody was relatively close to
Yeah.
go see and connect with, and it just
And so how old were you when you
this was all in the last like four-ish years.
So this is recent.
Yeah, this is fresh.
And what was it like when you met your birth mom?
You know, all those feelings hit you at
Yeah.
once. You know, you're seeing this person you have been in a fairy tale, imaginative world.
Mm-hmm.
Your dreams are coming true in this moment. And it quickly came crashing. Our first visit was us in a trailer. We went camping. We met at a mutual area and we went camping. And they own a fifth wheel and everything. And so I just stayed with them, and it was the most awkward, uncomfortable.
Really? You say
thing.
them, so I'm assuming she
So
was
it was
with
her husband, her
Okay.
2 kids, and my mom. We're all in this fifth wheel, and it was just
For the first
so
time meeting
awkward.
them.
Yeah,
So these
it
are your
was my
half
birthday.
siblings?
Oh, it was. Do not ever meet your parents on your birthday.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Don't do it. I will look in the camera and say
Yeah.
that. Don't do it because birthdays are already hard from
Yes,
us.
right.
That's your day that you were abandoned.
Mm.
And so to then go back and meet this person who abandoned you and celebrate your
Mm.
don't do it. Don't do it.
So you're with so you said them, so your birth mom obviously got married and had more children.
No,
Oh.
no. My sister tried to do this whole, oh look, we have the don't know our daddies. We're in the don't know our daddies club.
Oh, gosh.
All a lie. She knows her dad. She has pictures. She knew when he died. She knew everything. Lot of lies. There was a lot of lies. I came down there. I spent time with them in Colorado at Thanksgiving time. Flew my son in, everything. You know, I was thinking, we're going to do this. We're going to do this right. And Thanksgiving was really hard. She cooked a recipe from the grandmother and wanted me to just head over heels, love it. And I'm biting it like,
Yeah.
And my son's, love my son. He's over there like, this is the best.
Like, don't be so excited.
I'm like, mommy ain't ever making that, so don't get the recipe.
Yeah, right.
You know? But yeah, it was really hard. She was very showboaty about money and her lifestyle and you know, our lifestyles are
boasting, kinda like-
completely absolutely. You know, we can swipe our card for anything type of mentality.
And what do you think that, for like birth parents, what do you think that they can do differently to help an adoptee feel comfortable when it comes to reunion?
You know, I get that we shouldn't expect anything from these people.
I think you should, though.
You do, but you don't. Like, I don't expect certain things, but I do expect, like, my medical history and a few questions. Like, have respect to answer my questions.
Absolutely.
We
I
are the
agree.
ones kept in the dark.
Right.
We were the ones in a closed adoption, not you. You still got to grow up with your biological family in every way. And we're over here with strangers wondering, where did we come from? Who do we look like? Do you draw like I do? Do you do this like I do? And so to meet these people and you finally get to answer some of those questions and they are abrupt and not wanting to listen, that right there, it shuts us down. For me anyway.
Yeah.
It shut me down even more because I felt like, oh, you
So
know,
it's
you
a
don't want to
turnoff.
hear. Yeah. You don't want to hear about my life. You don't want to hear the good, bad, and the ugly. You only want to hear what you want to hear.
Mm.
And it was so surface level. Everything was
Really?
just surface. Keep it on the surface. We're not going down deep. We're not delving into anything. And so I do believe that birth parents need to allow us that grieving time. Allow us to tell you our experience. Allow us to ask questions. You know, if there's a question that maybe you completely are uncomfortable, put a pin in it.
Right.
I would rather
Yep.
my birth mother or birth father say, can we put a pin in that? Maybe I'm not ready to talk about that, and address it later.
I almost feel like, though, as a birth parent myself, like I'm
You
not
are
putting a
deserving
pin in
of this.
anything.
No.
If I'm feeling something, I'm just gonna like
Feel it.
I just feel like as the adoptee, you deserve that unrestricted, just like let it all out. And I think as birth parents, I think we have to sit there. I think we should listen, even if it's like super hard. Even if inside we want to say put a pin in it. It's like no,
Yeah.
you really just.
I guess what I'm saying when I say put a pin in it is maybe something
It's really hard for me, or just
maybe
be
hard for them
transparent
to
about
talk
the pain.
about, because I get that going through a relinquishment is not going to be, I can never understand it from a first parent's standpoint. I will never understand that experience, just as they will never understand mine.
Right.
So if there was something I didn't want to talk about that they asked me, I would say maybe could we put a pin in it?
But you're the
and come
adoptee.
back to it. True.
So, do you know what I'm saying? In my opinion, as a birth parent, I'm like, yeah, but you're still the child.
And I
Right.
think Tyler and I, we've always
Like,
prepped ourselves that no matter how hard of a question it is, no matter how
Yeah.
emotional it makes us, no matter if we don't agree maybe with
Yep.
what she feels,
It's our duty.
we're going to sit and own it, and we will say anything, and we will take accountability, and we will apologize, we will cry, we will whatever we have to do.
Yeah.
You know, but we've been like prepping ourselves for that.
Good.
Like,
yeah, because
whatever
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It's
you
important
know?
because, like, even with you saying, like, it's just you're the adoptee. You need this, and I feel like as birth parents, we're the ones that put the adoptee in the situation. We have to
Right.
just
Right.
But I don't think all birth parents think like that, obviously.
Well, but I mean, like when I
Oh,
talk,
no, they don't.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
They
I'm like,
absolutely
Because
don't.
I think one thing that me and Kate always talked about was like, reunions aren't always beautiful. And reunions aren't always this, like you said, I had this la fantasy about what it's going to be like. And I don't know how that's going to look like to the child who's adopted. So as a birth parent, we even have our own la fantasy.
We do.
That
Yeah.
The running to your
oh
arms
my gosh.
and
So I think me and Kate spent a lot of time preparing that, like,
She
the
may
day
not
the
want
day
nothing to do
might
with
become,
us,
or I
or-
hate you, you totally ruined my life, and whatever.
Yeah.
And then we have to bow our heads, and you've just got to say, I'm so sorry, I love you, and that's it. And that's the only
Yeah.
2 words I believe that we should be able to say.
Yeah, because we definitely have fantasized.
Of course.
stuff.
I mean, I think it's
Oh,
natural. We're
absolutely.
humans.
That is so natural. I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like that is going to be natural from all sides
Yeah.
of this.
Mhm.
I'm going to say constellation. I hate the word triad.
I actually love constellation. I
do
agree
too.
with you.
I like
yeah.
constellation because we're just kind of all there.
Yeah.
Whereas the triad makes it 3 equal
Yes.
sides. We are not
Not
equal
equal
at
sides.
all in
Yes,
this.
Yes.
that's a good point.
We
That's
are
a good
not
point.
equal. And it allows adoptive parents to feel as though they have this voice.
Same, yeah.
Yeah. They're on the same level. Their voice should be heard. And it's like,
Tyler and I always say, like, the adoptee and the birth parents lose everything,
yeah.
and the adoptive parents gain. They don't lose anything. They gain everything.
Yeah.
So they should be the
Well,
ones,
other than maybe a biological child.
right? But
But
like,
also a biological child that never was. So it's
Yes,
like
exactly.
even when you talk about the adoptive parent losing something, it's just I just don't like to compare it
Yeah.
because it's
They
like
gain everything.
you
They don't
didn't
lose-
Yeah, you still grew up in your
you
biological
still-
family.
Yeah, you still and you
Genetic
still
mirroring
and
was
you were
still
still
your
able to
thing.
be a parent.
Yeah.
It might not have been biologically, but you were still able to be a parent. So like you really like
I'm kind of like, so you sit down and be quiet.
please. Like,
Let everybody else talk.
Absolutely. And have you noticed, obviously you have, society really puts these people on pedestals.
I know.
Why?
Adoptive
Above
parents
everybody
can
else.
do
I don't
understand this. I'm
no wrong.
And why
I don't
is that
understand.
above
Yeah.
everybody else?
Yep. I can't tell you how many times I've been told that, go back to your crack mom. Where all of
Whoa.
our mothers are druggies. They all
Wow.
didn't want us. They all, were poverty, slums. I mean, every derogatory thing you can think of for a human being, they will throw that out as representation for first families. And it's, it's so far from that, you know. Our parents, you know,
It's so diverse.
it really is, you know, and I really think that that's where we need to have that conversation that, you know, my negative experience will never negate someone else's experience. All these adoptees you've interviewed already, my experience will never negate theirs and vice versa. We truly are not a monolith. We've all been adopted in different ways. We all went into completely different families, dynamics, everything, income brackets, everything has been different for us. And so how could we have one similar outcome? The only thing that makes us all the same is that primal wound that, you know, especially for infant adoptees, obviously there's still going to be a wound for foster youth.
Right.
And that wound, I think, is what is the catalyst for a lot of our other issues, you know, the mental health. You know, you're going to see these patterns in us, the behavior issues, the depression, the suicidal ideation. I mean, I was 7 when I started looking, you know, off of our balcony and going, you know.
7?
Yeah, oh yeah, 7.
Wow.
And I had to make myself afraid of dying.
Wow.
As soon as I learned that clouds couldn't hold your weight, and everybody says you go to heaven when you die, and I was like, well, they don't hold your weight. And if I got on a cloud, I'm just going to fall through, and then I'm going to die again. And then I'm going to go back and die again. I had to find any way possible to make myself afraid of what I craved. You crave it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You crave not being in any of this because nobody's giving you the answers that you need. And so you're just, why am I here? And so, yeah, very, very, very young and not having anyone to, you know, no mental health.
Yeah, nobody
help
in your
at
life at all.
Yeah. My adopted mother had a massive stroke when I was 7.
Oh, wow.
Which did not help my mental at all. I was left to the devices of my brothers, my neighbor, and some family. We lived probably about 40-ish minutes away from family, pretty much all of our family. And so the weekends, maybe I would go and stay with them. But that was hard. That was hard to have a mother that just completely checked out. After that stroke, she checked out. She just sat on the couch, watched TV, smoked her cigarettes, and drank her coffee, and that was her existence.
From a young age, that's young. I mean, that's
I literally had no mother.
Yeah,
I lost, and that's another thing that people really don't want to realize in adoption.
Yes.
We have the chance of losing another set of family. You know,
which is double the trauma, double the impact. I mean, it's,
absolutely, and it really was hard to lose. And even my aunt, her sister, threw it in my face. My adopted mother, she says, "Wow, you know, you lost 2 mothers." And I'm thinking to myself, who says that? Who would say that? Where were you, Auntie?
Right.
Yeah.
Where did you, Aunt Alice? Where were you to pitch in and say, "Wow,
Right.
you know, let me help my niece"?
Right.
No, none of it.
Yeah, or to look at
I was
this
still the problem at the
Yeah,
end of the
or
day.
looking at it as this is wrong. Hello.
Yep. And I just, you know, things like that will never not be seared into my brain. That you lost 2 mothers. Like,
right.
So obviously, I mean, just from yours, I'm guessing that you don't have a relationship, obviously, with your adoptive family whatsoever.
Absolutely not. Going no contact was the last nail in the coffin. I needed that nail to be put in.
And when did you start that, the no contact?
The no contact, it had started slowly. Started in my 17 when I started going by my middle name. So I started going by my middle name because I wanted to distance myself. That was my first step at distance. And then I moved to Maryland in my 20s, and that didn't work out, and I had to tuck tail and come back. I moved to Vegas, and that didn't work out, and I had to tuck tail and come back. And it kind of just told me that you can't do anything without these people. I was so trauma bonded that I just told myself, you can't do anything without these people.
Can you
need
explain
these
trauma
people.
bonded for people who don't
For me,
understand?
Trauma bonding meant that I went with the safest option. So the safest option in my home was still always my dad. Even though he was
The
highly
abuser.
my abuser,
Right.
he also was the one that swooped in and was nice and kind and was nice. And I even
Compared to
have-
everything else, like he was,
I confronted him before he died. I confronted him.
Wow.
You can hear on the recording, my voice is shaking. I was completely higher than a kite because this was the only way that I could confront this man.
Yeah, right.
You can hear the voice change. I almost sound really young, like a child.
Infantile, yeah. Like,
Yeah. Approaching this man that I had feared all my life, but also was very stuck, like glue to. I confronted him and I said, why did you apologize to me randomly when I was 20 for the stuff that you did to me as a kid? And just hearing him on tape talk about how it was just silly stuff. And
oh my God.
I'm just, what, sir? And he even says in this tape that he says, I did nice things for you because she wouldn't. So he knew.
Wow.
He knew. It's like they both knew what disgusting role they were backing each other up with. She defended him against me, the stuff he was doing, blamed me for it, but then he defended me against her. So of course I chose him. He was the nicer of the two abusers,
the lesser of two evils, really, because they're both evil. So
Yep.
I think people get that terminology confused, where it's like trauma bonding means you are bonding with someone with your abuser, someone who is not safe
I like
for you.
that. I
And-
mean, Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
people
right.
know the term Stockholm
Yeah.
syndrome, even though it goes way deeper
right.
than that. But it really is kind of a Stockholm-y type
Yeah.
of thing. I've grown up with these people. I've known nothing other than these people since 7 days old. And so for me, you just, it's so easy to Stockholm
Yeah.
your way through.
Well, it's a survival.
So much.
It's really a survival
Absolutely.
strategy that you have to kind of just adopt, unfortunately, to get through this, to even make
Absolutely.
close to a little bit of sense of what's happening.
Yep. And then,
which is crazy.
I think confronting him, and I even played that for my middle brother who I was
Did you
close
really?
to, and he just, and he still chose.
No emotion at all from that.
None. None of it. They all just chose each other.
I don't know how you ended up so great. I really, because I can sense
hold up.
I can sense the empathy,
rebuttal
though.
that. I have been a shitty human.
Okay,
I think
we
we've
all
all been a
have.
shitty
Yeah,
human.
yeah.
But
I'm glad cameras and social media were not around in my 20s.
Sure, you wouldn't have been on MTV yet.
But I want to always strive to be a better person than I was the day before. And if
Right.
that comes from me having to realize that I've done shitty things to people, I've been a horrible human to people, then that's what it's going to take. But at the end of the day, I want better.
Yeah.
It's just like with advocating and doing this, it is an emotional toll on me.
Mhm.
It is emotionally laborsome. But at the end of the day, it is not for me.
Mhm.
This is not fully for me. This is for the little adoptee that
Yeah.
feels like their voice is not being heard, that they don't have people to side with them, to listen to them. I will listen to you,
Mhm.
I get a lot of adoptees that will send me messages and say, I feel seen. As blunt as you are, I finally feel seen because I'm saying the things that they want to say, but know that they're going to hurt someone to say it.
Right.
And I do, at this point, y'all have hurt me enough. I do not care that I hurt you.
Yeah.
I do not care that you're getting hurt in the process of me healing, but also making and hopefully paving
Yeah.
a way for other little adoptees to say, you know what? I can stand in my truth.
Mm-hmm.
No matter who isn't listening, who doesn't respect me, I'm going to stand in my truth.
And speak it.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because our narrative has been taken from us.
Stolen.
When
Robbed.
you
yeah.
tell-
Forever.
Yeah.
Telling a child that you are grateful, lucky, that they must be grateful, lucky, blessed, you are 100% telling
Mhm.
that child's story
Yeah.
for
Mm.
them. And we've got adoptive parents. It really irritates me to see how many adoptive parents will adopt and then monetize off this adoption. Oh, look, we're adopting.
Yeah.
Money, money, money. Look, we're doing this. And it's funny because it's the same things that y'all are getting blamed for, that you won't stop monetizing off of this child.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
But do y'all have that same energy for all these adoptive parents out here?
They don't.
They
pushing
don't.
this narrative that they adopted this child and everything's great
They
and
don't,
happy.
because all their comments are like, "I'm so happy for you.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
see, Jesus heard your prayer.
God's
Yep.
gift
Yep.
and all that stuff.
I'm like, I have gone through 3 TikTok accounts because y'all can't handle my truth.
Mm.
But how many of these adoptive
Yeah.
parents with hundreds and thousands and millions of followers are you listening to their every spoken word? You're watching this adoption. You're seeing the beautiful side, but whose eyes are you seeing it
Right.
through?
Through
Right.
the adoptive
Why
parents.
does the world know your child's adoption story before they understand
Even know
their
it.
story?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they probably don't even know it too that they're
Right.
adopted. Yeah,
Right.
and here you are. Hey, everyone, we adopted.
Look how great we are.
Ah.
We're saving.
Yeah,
It's a horrible. The savior complex, I've realized, is so rampant. It's,
Yep.
Like I didn't realize that that was even like part of it until hearing all the. Actually, the most backlash that I've seen is from other adoptees, which I was shocked by. I was like, whoa! Like I didn't realize
Our
that
glitter bombers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realize the biggest opposition was going to be other adoptees who are.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, like, when did you first read the Primal Rune? When did the fog when did you even realize what that was?
Yeah, so Siobhan, first birth
Mom.
mother, I
Mhm.
can't remember her username. Siobhan was the first birth mother on Instagram that I started to follow. I wanted to, I didn't follow adoptees first. I followed a
Okay.
birth mother.
Interesting.
Because I kind of wanted to understand the mindset of relinquishment. I wanted to see where the hell, or is this coming from? And so I just kind of silently followed Siobhan for a long time and just watched her cry for a morsel of her child. And I was like,
Yeah.
and did it feed into my own fantasy? Absolutely. This has to be what my birth mother is going
Right.
through, agony. No. But I needed that. I needed that first. And then I started following other transracial adoptees on TikTok and listening to them talk freely about how they felt in these homes where they didn't fit really was another added layer that I needed.
Well, I think it makes you not feel alone.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And as
I'm like,
humans,
wait,
we
you
need
have
that.
this trauma too?
Right. And as humans, we need that.
Yep,
Like to not feel
absolutely.
alone is huge.
Yeah. And so to hear them talk and explain, how they felt, and I felt seen. I felt so seen for the first time ever. And just from there, it just it snowballed. I have no regrets on losing any of my accounts.
Right.
Because I think it's made me grow as a person and understand more of how to do this.
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, when I first started doing this, was I angry? Did I come across angry? Absolutely.
Right.
But I feel like you had the right to feel angry.
Anger is a valid
It's a
emotion.
journey.
It is a valid
It is a
emotion.
valid.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so valid. It does cover up. Therapy obviously teaches you it covers up for X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually sadness and hurt is underneath anger.
That
Yeah.
emotion will, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
I'm over here. They're like,
Yeah.
you're angry. Well,
shit.
that's the bottom.
Right.
Right.
Go up the branch and tell
Right.
me how you really feel.
Right.
And you're like,
Yep.
what?
Uh-huh.
Therapy has been amazing. I feel like I've healed in different chapters. We healed the sexual abuse, and then I healed some of the stuff with my mom, or at least I thought I did with my adoptive mom. But it's been nice, and now I'm healing the racial trauma. Until I took a psychological evaluation, I didn't realize. The lady sat me down and she says, "Do you realize how racially traumatized you are?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah. We're supposed to be quiet about
That's
that.
a whole nother layer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother layer of trauma you just added. Thank you. And so now the therapist I have has really been so healing in that racial traumatized area. She just freely lets me talk and explore that side that I didn't get to explore, and talk about it. And I'm getting to talk about it with another Black woman that really just, like, she gets it. I don't have to explain, well, this is a microaggression. And,
right.
She's,
That's
there's even
awesome.
things that where, she's telling me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
know. So there, it's really come full circle, and I'm happy where it's progressing. I'm seeing change. I'm seeing people wake up. Granted, I have to go through a load of hate.
Us too. Yeah,
I mean, society rides hard.
It's so gross.
Hard for adoption. And it's like, y'all don't even know what it's like.
No, they don't.
To
A lot
be
of the
adopted.
a lot of the times they're not involved in
the ones that
adoption
ride,
at all.
the ones that ride the hardest are like, you're not even
I have
related
a
to any.
second cousin.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, my neighbor was
remember
adopted.
And
Yeah.
how old are you?
And they
Are you
love it.
12? Like, what's going on?
Mhm. And again, going back to, the monolith, all of our experiences are different. We all
Every
came from
single one.
different
Mhm.
backgrounds. An infant adoptee is definitely going to have a different view and opinion on their adoption than, say, a foster child
Right.
who maybe was abused in their previous home and now got a healthy home for
Right.
them to be in, which is the goal.
Yeah.
A healthy home, a safe external care.
Yeah.
And so for them to go into healthy from unhealthy, their experience is going to be different.
Mhm.
And that, honor them all.
Yeah.
I love that our community is getting better at, my realm is private infant adoption,
right.
transracial adoption. I'm not here to hit on foster care. I'm not here to hit on kinship.
Right.
There's
You're
adoptees.
here to hit on what you
Yep,
went through.
what I
Right.
personally went
Yeah.
through. There's going to be the kinship adoptees that are
Right.
they still struggle.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's still a struggle in being even with your own family still. So yeah, we're all coming at this just from so many different angles.
But the one that everyone has in common is that they are, in this adoption constellation. So, in your
Yeah.
opinion, what needs to change? What needs to change in this whole
The whole system.
Adoption industry is an industry,
It is.
which I realize is also people get very upset about.
Yep.
So, like, what do we do?
In my opinion, I think the foster and adoption systems need to be federalized. I feel like every state needs to have the same playbook. That none of this, let's fly your mother up to Utah
Yeah.
so
Right.
we know that the ink is dry and you're guaranteed a baby. We need to take the consumerism out of it. These children should not come with a cost. Adoption is a $25 billion a year industry. They price these children based upon their age, ethnicity, gender, abilities.
Mhm.
Why are these children priced differently?
Right.
That
You
right there
know?
is just like,
And
Why
people-
is there a price at all? It should be
Yeah,
free.
yeah.
Exactly. I can understand, and everybody likes to say it's just legal fees.
Oh,
If
No,
it
God, I
really
hate
was
that.
legal
I
fees,
hate
they
it.
would all be,
Exact
a certain
same.
Come on.
a certain
Around the
thing,
same, yeah.
The fact that parents, foster and adoptive parents are getting stipends for children, they're getting tax breaks for
Mm.
children. These are things that could have really helped a first family to stay together. I do feel as though we need more family planning type of programs for families in crisis, for these women in crisis, so they can be educated on fully what adoption is.
Yep.
Yeah.
None of it is informed consent.
None of it is, and
None of it.
and it's hard to accept. Honestly, years down the line, as birth parents, it's hard to
Yeah.
like look back and think,
It
"Wow,
is. And
I
I
really-
get
I
angry
was gaslit.
sometimes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I find myself getting mad sometimes because I'm like,
what the fuck?"
I was never told the statistics of adoptees. I was never told of
Mhm.
pre-verbal trauma. I was never told of, how they struggle more with mental health or addiction or suicidal ideation or none. You're literally told nothing.
No.
Nothing.
So
and
how's that-
I could go on and on
Yeah.
about things that I've learned that I was not aware of.
Exactly. And I feel like the industry keeps it that way.
Right.
They wouldn't have babies
Yeah, they don't want us to know.
if you knew the trauma that baby could potentially have.
but
and
legally, I think it should have to be shared.
absolutely. And I think if we federalized a lot of these systems, it really would take them back. They're not industries anymore.
Right.
They would be it would be a
Take
system.
the commodity.
There's so much commodification.
Oh,
Shouldn't be buying a child like you're buying a car.
Right.
You know?
You shouldn't be able to say peanut butter skin. You know what I mean? That shouldn't even be a thing. Like what?
Right. You know,
the ethics is just so disturbing.
I remember hopping on TikTok, newly coming out of my own birth parent fog, and I would see adoptees on there, and their background would be like, adoption is no different than human trafficking, or it is human trafficking. And I would sit on there because I'd be like, what? Like, how? And then I would hear these people explain human trafficking to the people that are coming on there trying to argue it. And I'm like, holy shit, there's no difference.
Yeah. People don't want to realize it's human trafficking, that it's selling.
It's like illegal human trafficking.
That it's selling children. Adoption in the United States breaks about 15 out of 30 rights of a child that are set forth by the UN. However, we don't recognize the UN's Convention of Children here. We don't recognize it here in the United States.
Insane.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, right.
To hear that the ACPCA, the animal rights, they were the first ones to recognize that children needed protection. They helped set up what we know as CPS today.
Wow.
But animals had rights before children.
And
took
that,
a child getting horribly abused before they were like,
and also people don't realize that this is an American problem. This is like not
mostly an American problem.
Mostly.
Absolutely.
Other countries have already learned. They have.
This is why you're seeing so many crackdowns from what was China's the last one. That
they said
recently they're like, no, we're good.
No.
Yeah.
And there's a congressman, I think, somebody in the political realm that is trying to get China to release these children that were already promised to families. And
no, good for China. Sorry, I'm like, good for them.
They know. Listen, we all have a problem when China's like, "Hey, we're not."
We have a problem when any country,
right?
Is like,
they're saying, "Oh, we're not sending to America because
we've seen what's happening."
Yeah, like it's
over
insane.
there.
Like there's no protection here, and I think
There's
the
not.
whole point about it is that the fact that adoption exists is we've already failed these women, and and the fact that we're commodifying children. Already wrong.
Yep.
Like before we even get to the point of talking about adoptive parents deserving children or deserving to be a parent, like we already.
Nobody deserves somebody else's baby.
Absolutely,
it's not a deserving
and being
thing.
a parent isn't a right.
It's not a right. I would love to see anywhere where it says parenting is a rite of passage in this life. You know, there is no guarantee to any of it. And do I feel for these people? Absolutely.
100%.
Yes. I am somebody who had a child, so I can't imagine not having a child, but I also, in that same breath, can't imagine going and taking someone else's. And, I read a story just today of a couple. They adopted 2 infants 4 months apart from each other.
Whoa.
2 birth, like, I'm like doing the math and I'm thinking to myself, like, all that money you couldn't have, did they need somebody in their corner to help them?
Right.
And it drives me nuts that we as a society see these GoFundMes
for
adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents, and there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in there so they can buy a human, and yet a woman over here in crisis only needs a couple $1,000s. Car seat, whatever,
and she's got like $10.
Should have kept your legs closed.
Yeah, if she made a GoFundMe, she'd be vilified.
If you can't afford a baby, the baby stuff, you can't afford the baby. Well,
Which
they can't afford to buy the baby.
Right,
yeah,
right.
And you're fine donating to them, saying God bless, good luck. It's like what?
Yeah.
Which was a whole another thing of that we're centering the wrong people.
Absolutely.
Well, as a culture, we just have it completely twisted.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Learning about the tax credit for adoptive parents really bothered me bad because
and it's a big tax credit,
$16,000. And me and Kate, when we were 16. Do you know what that would have done?
Yep.
A 16. If we would have
that would have been more than enough.
A tax credit for struggling parents, teen parents, like that would have been huge.
Yep.
Like that would have
make
been,
it or break it money.
I probably would have needed $5,000.
If that, right?
If that,
right?
Yeah. Get my own apartment and a car, and I would have been set.
Yep. It's usually those initial upfront costs
that
a lot of these mothers need. I mean, because if you think about it, when these hopeful adoptive parents are adopting these babies, these womb wet babies, I like to say, they are in the hospital. They're doing, it is a cosplaying role. You are cosplaying this role of parenthood, you are trying to get as close as you can. We've seen them put on gowns and get in beds and, rent out private hospital rooms.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So they can do skin to skin and all of this
They
stuff.
put a gown? Oh,
That's some Handmaid's Tale shit right there.
It really
yeah,
it is.
that is.
Handmaid's Tale is an accurate portrayal of adoption in America.
Yeah, because it's these women that don't want to do, but they're being forced or coerced to do it.
Yep. And people always, well, nobody wants a baby conceived out of rape. These women did.
Yeah.
You showed every single one of these women absolutely wanting their babies.
They did.
Are there cases where women do not want? Absolutely. And we can address those cases as they come. But society really has this narrative and belief that we are so unwanted. We, our parents' drugs, all of this, they're abusive,
so not true.
all of this stuff.
And facts say otherwise.
Absolutely.
I mean, we just talked to Gretchen. She just talked about 95% of birth moms wanted to parent.
Yep.
Yeah. They just lack the support and the resources.
And that's why whenever we get hate or I'm on a live and I get hate, really what I tell people is take even just 5 minutes out of your day and educate yourself about adoptees and the statistics. And if that doesn't bring to light certain things or change your mind of certain things, then something is wrong with you, I think.
Absolutely.
Like just 5 minutes, even 3 minutes just to read the stuff.
It took me 60 seconds, 60-second TikTok.
There you go.
To understand how disabled people are viewed in TV show and media.
See?
I watched a 60-second TikTok and I was like,
Oh
my God, we really do this shit to people.
Right.
We totally, with people with disabilities, highlight them in such atrocious ways in movies and television and film, just all of it. 60 seconds, that's all it took. But in 60 seconds, when it comes to an adoptee saying, trauma, adoption is trauma, they've already tuned me out. They've already tuned me out at the word trauma. They're like, it's not trauma. These kids are happy and healthy and well taken care of, and they're better off.
It's almost like they act like they're like immune to like it's like some kind of infection that they accept this fact.
Right,
It's
like,
totally
what?
warp their whole moral code. It's like just chill out and just
I see it as we're tearing down that belief, that narrative. They've had this belief and narrative. We've seen it in Annie. What did Annie do?
Yeah.
She got Daddy Warbucks.
Yeah.
She's living the high life.
Right.
Pollyanna, high life. American Girl, Samantha, high life. Anna Green Gables. All of these older shows, I feel like kind of set the stage, and then we get into the 80s and we have Cabbage Patch Dolls.
Oh, right.
You're adopting a Cabbage Patch doll.
True.
You're naming
Oh my
it. You're
God.
getting a birth
Right.
certificate. You're sending that in, and you're getting another amended
Weird.
birth certificate with your
Weird.
information on it.
But adoptees sealed records. That's weird. Yeah. That's so. How old are you? By the way, when did you even know about 16 and pregnant, or the did that ever?
Yeah. No, so I followed 16 and Pregnant because once I heard the adoption narrative of it, I was like, oh, I feel like us adoptees kind of gravitate. At least I did. We gravitate to some of these anything with family displacement. I feel like we kind of gravitate to because we're kind of like.
We're curious.
Yeah. How's it going to go out for them?
Yeah, right.
How's it gonna play out? And the fact that it was, you were young, it was the same thing with me following Siobhan. I wanted that birth parent. What's going to happen? How's this going to play out? Are they going to relinquish her? So I did follow y'all's story pretty closely, but I'm also not I don't do a lot of reality TV.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
follow celebrities. And so after that was kind of said and done, I kind of just, checked out, and then I would see things pop up and stuff like that. But, the hate that y'all get, it's next level. I mean, the hate that my community gets is disturbingly next level. I can't imagine. And that's what I need society to realize. Would you say the things that you are saying to a grown-up adult adoptee? Would you say that to a child? If you have a child in your home under the age of, we'll say 11,
Right.
even,
Right.
would you say the things that you're saying to us? Would you say, oh, they should have left you in a dumpster. You should have been aborted. You should have been,
They would
never been adopted. You're not deserving of it. You're so ungrateful. I had
Most
a
of them-
dollar for every time I was told I was ungrateful.
Most of them would never. You always have a handful of sickos, but most of them, never would.
Yeah, and and people need to realize adoptees, we make up 2% of the American population. We are so small and marginalized.
Yeah, oh my, listen,
we're hella marginalized.
I got yelled. I mean,
I got freaked out on for
like,
that.
I am not a minority. I didn't even mean to like you can't label me, and I'm like,
then don't. I mean, and that's the thing.
I'm not label. I said it's a fact. You're 2%. That is a
marginalization group, and people need to realize we are a group that lacks certain rights that everyone takes for granted. You would be able to walk in and go grab your original birth certificate, no issues.
Right.
I can't do that.
Right.
Except for today.
Woo!
Today was it today? I got notice of it the other day. I think today he officially signed it. That it is law. So in Utah, I can finally have access to my original birth certificate and file. There is still a caveat that a birth parent can, safety issue. But I've already met the beezy, so what safety issue now?
That's great.
I'm so excited, and if you can't understand why me having my original birth certificate is so important and so crucial for me to have, for us to have as adopted people, that is such a privilege for you to have.
Yeah.
That that
we take for granted.
Yeah,
absolutely. Kept people, we take a lot of that stuff for granted.
Absolutely. That you can just walk in and get your medical history.
Even seeing a sister had the same laugh, genetic mirroring that
many things that kept people take for granted.
I think kept people really whoa.
Yeah, genetic mirroring is wild.
Yeah, it's huge.
Wild to see, and had my birth mother relinquished me to my father in his care, I would have gotten to grow up. I looked more like my paternal side. I had an aunt and him and somebody else on that where they could not believe how much I looked like their mother, my grandmother. Wow. They're like, you look like you reincarnated.
Wow.
And that to me, I could have grown up with this woman's face and been able to see her face. One of my little things that I deal with is morphing. I have a lot of body dysmorphia when it comes to not having genetic mirroring. I will do things, put on makeup or do my hair, do something, and I'll look in the mirror, and if I'm having an off day, I morph. It's because I have morphed my adopted mother's face into my face, and so I'm looking for a reflection that doesn't exist. And it's not done on purpose. It's done because that was the face I grew up seeing. And so I'm trying to morph it into mine. And when I had my child, he is cut, paste, put a penis on it. He is me. I could not believe it. I'm like, I birthed my twin.
Did that impact you at all as an adoptee, having your first your first
genetic mirroring?
I can't tell you how impactful that was to look at his toes, his fingers, his nose, his lips, his eyes, his ears, everything about him when he started his hair. And I'm like, it's curly like mom's, to see him has been so healing. And I know that our children are not here to heal us. They're not here to do anything for us other than exist. But that healed a huge part of me. To finally see genetic mirroring, somebody that shared my features and all that. And for people that, I have tons of people, genetic mirroring, that's pseudoscience. The fuck it ain't.
Yeah.
The fuck it ain't to know that you got this trait from somebody. You look like this person. You do these things like them, even though I don't have a relationship with my mom, my birth mom, she's an artist. She likes to draw.
Oh,
and so to learn that I got stuff like that from these people is so healing. To know that, and when I got pictures of my grandmother on my paternal side and could see the genetic mirroring, and I just, thank you. I couldn't. It's so healing. And there's so many things that people just don't want to realize. I also, another thing going back, sorry to what things need to change. Open adoptions.
Yeah.
If at the end of the day, after every other resource has been exhausted and a child is still in a detrimental crisis, that needs to be detrimental crisis.
Yeah.
Not just needing
Right.
or, a detrimental crisis. That it is that we are still in community with our families when they are safe. If our families are safe, why are we not knowing who they are? What is this push to wait till we're 18?
Right.
Yeah, why?
Well, I think
You
the
know?
push to the 18 thing is really weird because I've gotten so many stories of they go to search at 18 and they're dead.
Yes.
Their bio parents are dead, and I'm like,
yes. They've either
all
passed away.
and all because they were protecting their adoptive parents' feelings. And I'm like, wow. So that now that adoptee has to deal with that.
Yes.
That they self-betrayed for their comfort, and now also double the trauma because now the bio parent's dead. So the whole wait till 18 thing is just
And go back to when you were 18.
yeah.
Go back to when you were 18. You're still trying to figure out who the fuck you are, where you fit in this world,
There's a
how
lot
you're going to
going
fit in
on.
this world. You have all of these feelings of coming into adulthood, and at 18 is too young.
Yeah.
And you are going to now put on this child, oh yeah, now go find your family.
Yeah,
At
on top of
18,
everything. Yeah, on top of everything
frontal
else.
lobe's not
Yeah,
even developed yet.
Right.
And you're putting that, you're compounding more trauma on. I feel like it compounds more trauma onto us. And, obviously I don't have a statistic for this one, but I would love to know how many reunions past 18 fell and how many are successful.
Right.
And are they more successful at an earlier age
Right.
going forward?
Compared to when,
versus
yeah,
18.
right.
Yeah, that cutoff.
That'd be interesting
needs
to know.
be.
It would be.
Yep, and I can't remember the name of it right now. It's some adoption council, and they came out with a statistic and a report. They did a survey of infant adoption, and he came out with all these beautiful statistics. But when you actually click on the link and you look at where he got these statistics from,
The NA Council, or I think I know what you're talking about.
National
Yes,
Adoption
yes.
Council, yes.
Their highest donors, Catholics.
All biased.
It's all.
All of it was.
Hate
He specifically said on there not to share this survey on social media.
Oh,
you wonder
really?
why.
Oh,
He
see.
and then when you look at who took the survey, there were all these people that didn't qualify in infant adoption. If you're touting these as statistics for infant adoptees, then you needed
Yep.
people. They would have had to have been privately most likely privately adopted.
Right.
Very rarely do you get an international child that is a womb wet baby,
Right.
or a child from the foster system that has been TPR'd finally, that is a newborn baby. They're
Right.
not TPRing newborn babies.
Right. For people who don't know, what's TPR?
TPR is termination of parental rights.
Yeah.
They don't,
Yeah.
we're not doing that.
Right.
You had to go through all these documents.
Oh my gosh, yes, and wait 30 days and
Yeah.
do all
Yeah.
the things. Yes.
So it's not this cut and dry thing. And if you're going to tout it as these
Yes.
statistics are cut and dry, I need
Which
the
is crazy
statistic
because
material
I
is
actually
good.
I can't remember what it's called. National Association Adoption. I can't remember what it's
the council or something.
Yeah, and I went to all their studies, and then I went to all the donors that donated to have the study done, and
it's
not
interesting.
the top
Follow the money.
donors. Religion, Catholic, social, all these and I'm like, this is, guys.
It makes sense though, because
It does.
if you look at religion and how religion views societal bastards,
Mm-hmm.
they feel as though getting these children into a 2-parent Christian home, Catholic home, whatever, is saving the child. You're saving the child from the parental sins.
No, that is so disturbing.
It's dystopian. It is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
dystopian.
And in your case, it was.
religion.
I mean, it really
Yep,
was.
religion
I mean,
and racism.
It's
played
like,
hand in hand. And a lot of biracial Black children that ended up being adopted is exactly for that reason. We had a white mother that had a family that was not conducive of having this Black child.
That were
in
racist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm
Wow.
trying to be all nice about
Yeah,
conducive.
No,
You're like,
yeah.
no.
no, they were racist. Yeah, they were racist.
So it's just,
Yeah.
it's been, I love meeting. You see how we get, when we get together.
yeah.
We bond.
I love
for the
seeing
most
it.
part, a lot of us, when we get together, we have that wound. We have that primal wound. That just kind of makes it, we don't need to talk about it. We talked about this, last night, that for you being around other first mothers is healing for you because you
Yes.
feel heard.
yes.
You feel validated.
Yes.
So for us to be around other adoptees, we feel heard and we feel validated. and the glitter bombers that, the happy adoptees. I'm glad that if they are truly happy and got out of what adoption promised, I am literally, thank you. I am so glad that was your experience. And I truly am happy for them, but for them to come in, oh, I'm sorry for your negative experience. How many, and that's what I would love to ask society, how many children what percentage of children are you willing to allow to have a negative outcome just so you can hear and have good, warm, fuzzy feelings inside that you heard a good story at some point?
Well, my whole thing is that these adoptees who are coming in here and kind of minimizing the ones who had negative experiences, it's like, listen, so let's find a positive one. Do you want to help me elevate? Are you willing to help me? I know you had a positive one. Yep. I'm happy for you. I did not. Will you help me?
Yes.
Like
help
that's
is
as
in
simple
fact,
as that. We're in the same community. I'm an adoptee. You're an adoptee.
Yep.
I had a bad one. You had a good one. Will you help me?
Yes. What made your adoption better? What were the steps that made your adoption
And if you don't want to
better?
help me, I feel like there's maybe some but like,
why are you here? It almost feels like they need that goodness validated. And if it was so good, why are you coming into somebody else's comment section that didn't have it good and trying to get validation from them for your good experience? I would never go into a DV victim class and go, oh, your husband did all that. Well, my husband, he's never.
Right.
Never.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Never.
You would be that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Asked to swiftly exit stage left.
Right.
You're here invalidating all these people.
And that's why I'm like more or less like the ones who had bad experiences, like, will you help me? Help them.
You mean the ones that had good ones?
Good experiences. Like, what are you advocating for? What are you doing to change the system so other kids have a positive outcome?
Absolutely. And I think this is a start. We're all talking about it. People are starting to talk about it more.
Yep.
Yeah. We're starting to push for change, and that's all we can do, And I just really appreciate you coming on here and
I'm so glad that you guys are doing this.
Thank you.
I really am. I love watching it kind of come full circle that you guys are coming out of your own fog and language, and you're learning the language, you're learning the trauma, you're accepting the trauma.
Well, just thank you for coming and being vulnerable and talking to us. And, this is all one step of change.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
And I hope that we can all continue to have these conversations, learn about adoptees, do your own education, and just thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Seriously. I really do appreciate you, because not many people want to give us a voice.
Oh, we're gonna.
We're gonna give them all a voice. So get used to it.
Not many people want to give us a voice because we say the things that hurt.
Hey,
but it's valid. And it needs to be said.
It does need to be said. And
people need to hear it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're so appreciative. Like, thank you.
Are you looking for your next case? Pluto TV has all your favorite crime dramas streaming for free.
You're gonna need some backup.
Which means suspense is free.
Very cool.
Watch CSI New York, Criminal Minds, Blue Bloods, Tracker, FBI, and SWAT all for free.
You can't outrun this.
Someone is gonna pay for all this crime. But it's not gonna be you.
Take care of business, fellas.
Watch all the cases, all for free, from all your favorite devices.
We got you.
Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.